Good morning. Welcome to Diamond's Edge Live. My name is Greg Diamond, editor of 10 Stock Trader at Sainsbury Research. And on this week's show, we're going to be talking about earnings. Okay, we're going to be talking about the short-term inflection point that we were looking for yesterday and on Monday. Kind of what that looks like, what we could set up heading into August, which I believe is likely to be a more important inflection point, an important time cycle. All right. Google and Tesla are reporting after the bell. That's going to start a wave of technology earnings heading into next week when you get even more Mag 7, Apple, AMD, Nvidia's or AMD's later in August, Nvidia's later in August. But we're rolling into earnings. So what I think is important is how the market is setting up into earnings and what we can look for in the overall market. I'll also take a look at gold, how that's performing, and we'll also take a look at Europe, all right, and how that is diverging from the US and why I think that's important, okay? So let me share my screen here. And first we'll just get started with, let's take a look at the NASDAQ, okay? This is a chart that I highlighted last week. And, I outlined this 72-day trading day from the low of April 7th. That came into Monday and Tuesday. Again, these are, +1, +2. You can see we got a short-term top, all right? Now, what I outlined to subscribers yesterday is that we actually could be looking at, that could actually be marking a short-term low, and then we keep rallying into the end of the month, maybe a correction. But again, that August date is going to be important for me, all right? Now, what could this look like? This is obviously one of the stronger sectors with the NASDAQ, and you can see we're in this overbought territory here in the RSI, but it has remained in that territory for quite some time. This is a high characteristic of a bull market where the RSI can just remain in this overbought territory. Does it remain forever? Of course not. So that's where we take into account time and price, and then we look at the indicators like the RSI. Okay, if we look at a stock or the sector like SMH, semiconductors. Okay, you can see here on Monday this actually created a top, and this sector dropped considerably yesterday. But transports were up over 1%. So we're starting to see this divergence already. And again, yesterday, Monday could have just been a very, very short-term inflection point, but something to keep in mind as we move through this overbought territory. We move through this, this rally that we've seen, this grinding rally higher with very little volatility. Dips are bought. All right. So what I think is more important is when we look at the Dow. And this is where time and price come into play. So if I look at price, all right, and this is just the Elliott wave off of this low. Again, this is back in April, or excuse me, May. All right, so you can see here, I've just labeled a simple 1, 2. We had this breakout wave 3. Now, is this the end of wave 4? And then what this very short-term time factor, okay, again, Monday and Tuesday, is this a 1, 2, and then we have this breakout into a wave 3, and that carries us here for this final 5-wave move higher into the first 2 weeks of August. Now, it's important for me to tell you that when we get into those first 2 weeks of August, I'm going to start to look at what specific days are likely to be more important than others. But that 2-week time frame to me is going to be important. And when we have these topping, or when I anticipate a top, whether it's larger or shorter term or whatever it might be, sometimes it's a process. And we'll see, the Dow diverge, or usually the Russell 2000. I'll pull that up right now. And I believe I highlighted this last week to the tune that, it hasn't made new all-time highs like the NASDAQ, okay, or semiconductors or Nvidia, okay? And you can kind of see here what I have here in blue. This is what we were looking at back in early the start of the month, and it's kind of taken that shape, all right? So let's say we get a pop here into August, first 2 weeks, but it doesn't make this new high, above November of 2024. That creates price divergence. It happens into an important time frame. Again, I believe the first 2 weeks of August, all right, and that creates somewhat of a correction. And when I say, oh, it's a wave 5, it's going to be a top, a lot of people like to go out and say, well, this is going to be a crash. I'm not saying that. I'm saying it's going to be a correction within this larger bull market. And as we've seen in mid-May, in June, okay, when I pointed out these other short-term time factors, it had every reason to be a highly volatile move, but it wasn't. Okay, we talk about war, we talked about tariffs, we talked about bombing, we talked about Ukraine. Every reason for that market, for this stock market, to have an extreme volatile environment, it wasn't. It was very low volatile. So can we see the same thing happen in August, where hey, we have this 5 wave corrective move, but it's actually just a very methodical, maybe sideways, choppy, low volatility, but kind of confusing type of environment? That would make the most sense to me. But again, this is something where you probably wouldn't want to get aggressive. That might take a lot of patience, okay, heading into, say August, September, maybe even October. Time frames, corrections like to move in periods of threes. Gann talks about this in his work: 3 days, 3 weeks, 3 months. Okay, so we'll get to that when we, we'll worry about that when we get there. But in the meantime, heading into earnings, heading into this time factor, heading into overbought territories, this is something that I'm keeping an eye on. All right, so let's also look at Europe. Okay, and you can see this is kind of goes back to exactly what I was just talking about in terms of price divergence, except I'm looking at it relative from Europe and the U.S. And it matters because everything is so correlated nowadays. But you can see that Europe, this is the Euro Stoxx 50 index, kind of the blue chip or the Dow of Europe, if you will. And this topped in mid-May. Okay, we had this bottom in June, and now you can see that's not keeping up with U.S. stocks. And did yesterday make a low here on this 22nd date, and we're rallying this morning. As I look here, Europe's up 1%. Okay, DAX, the same thing. French is up well over 1%. So, this could be a situation where we either grind higher to a slightly new high, okay, above this March 2025 high into August, or similar to what we saw in the small caps, it just doesn't make a new high. Again, that would create price divergence. That would tell me, as a bullish investor right now, this is not a place where you want to get aggressive, okay? And let's also so I mentioned Tesla and Google are reporting after the bell. Here's Google real quick, holding above its 200-day moving average, holding above its 55-day. All right, has not made new highs with the NASDAQ, okay? But if just looking at this real quick this morning before I hopped on, this is something where I could see something like this happening. 1, 2, 3, maybe we get a short-term top, a drop, and then we get that 5th wave. Whether that makes a new high remains to be seen. This could be added to that list of small caps or Europe that doesn't make a new high into August, warns of divergence, okay? We could also look at Tesla, and we've looked at Tesla as building up energy, kind of coiling. We talked about this with gold, which I'll get into next, okay? So, this is obviously a highly volatile stock, but as long as it holds, as long as it holds this 213 level, this remains in a bullish setup. So could we bounce around here for the next, couple weeks? Absolutely. Is it possible that we could break out as well? Yes. The risk reward favors being long here, but again, as long as this 213 level holds, this remains in a bullish setup. Okay. Now let's look at gold. And what we can see here is, and I mentioned this yesterday, all right, we had right here, we can see, so Monday and Tuesday, we had a really nice strong move. And if you remember, and I've covered this on the show, we looked at April 21st, April 22nd, where gold topped, all-time high was 3,500, okay, and stocks bottomed. This is where stocks started rallying, gold dropped, but has gone sideways. Now, I think this is really important in terms of the correlation, all right? And that is that gold has not broken below support. And you can see going all the way back, to earlier this year, is just holding support, building energy within this, sideways consolidation move, again, after a strong move, okay? And so, do we come back down here and test this level of support heading into August while stocks make a new high, okay? And then it still holds support, and then boom, it breaks out, stocks enter its corrective phase. That to me would make the most sense. All right, this is a situation where you could get aggressive with call options, or you can simply buy some ETFs to take advantage of that breakout. If it continues to be rallying but not as violent. Could we get something like this? Absolutely. That would be a situation where a call option would be fantastic. But either way, I think this is a situation in gold where you're going to want to participate in this market. So again, I think the important thing right now is how we see, earnings trading into August. Are they good? Are they bad? Do we get some sideways price action over the next couple of days as we wait, more tech earnings into next week? But then, again, heading into that August timeframe, we have to look out for divergence. And I think that's going to be important. And like I said, once we get into that timeframe, I'm going to outline the specific days that I believe in my private charts that I will be more important. That will be more important than others. But from a broader perspective, okay, it's not always about catching the exact high or buying the exact low. From a broader, bigger picture, I think August is going to be a time frame where you're going to want to take a little bit of profit, maybe sit back on the sidelines, practice some patience, and then wait for the other setups to happen. As again, we'll look at that 3-period time factor that Gann like to talk about in terms of corrective moves and rallies. Okay, so that's what I'm looking for the rest of this week. Again, divergence. We'll see what happens with earnings, but I'm really gearing up for what happens into the first 2 weeks of August. Okay, so with that, I'm happy to take any of your questions. Thoughts on Tesla ahead of earnings? Yeah, let's look at it again. And I think so. Aside from the chart, so I'll outline this. To me, let's just go over this in terms of Elliott wave count. I outlined the this sort of consolidation move. Okay, but what I'm looking at here, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a big wave 1. Okay, and then this could be a 2 that lasts into August. This could be the bottom, and we rally again. As long as this level of 213 holds, this is the favored wave count, which means this could break out into a wave 3. Now, even if that's not the case, okay, and we get this rally, this could be a big ABC off of this move. It could just be, choppy. Now, what would cause that? Tesla's talking about robo-taxis and automation and AI and lots of, cutting edge technology. Obviously, sales matter for Tesla. They haven't been great. Does that change? Has that changed since, Elon Musk sort of stepped away from the political realm and hopefully has focused more on what he's supposed to be doing in Tesla? This almost reminds me of what happened with Under Armour in Baltimore and Kevin Plank. This is years ago, but Under Armour made t-shirts, sneakers. He did very, very, very well. And then he started getting into breweries and renovating hotels and real estate. And the street basically said, what are you doing? You shouldn't be doing this. Focus on what you're doing, what you're good at, and making t-shirts and not this other stuff. And there's a little bit of that happening right now with Elon Musk and Tesla. So we're going to see, and it might take time, okay? But again, taking that into account, the fundamental aspect, getting back into running Tesla, getting back into, focusing on the new technology, focusing on sales, all right? And then there's the technical part, which is holding above this 213 level. That gives us the probabilities that this could be a consolidation before a larger breakout higher in Tesla. Please check out Block. Sure, XYZ. I haven't looked at this. We traded this for a while years ago. We haven't looked at it recently, but here you can see that, for a while it just really went sideways and continues to. We traded this in 2021, 2020, coming out of COVID. You can see here there were some nice moves going back then. And now it's just gone sideways. Now it's had a nice move of late, but it's trading above its 200-day moving average. It's 55-day. But this whole sideways price action, while it has not kept up with the rest of the market, is something that I just don't, I kind of just take it off my radar, so to speak. I don't like to, if it follows the market, I'll do it. Now, you can take advantage of the extreme move, there's no doubt. But I like to see the correlations in play with the broader market rather than a stock like this, which has just gone sideways for a few years and not trended in any direction, especially when it comes to trading options. Have you heard of a Neo Wave? It's supposed to be a plussed up version of Elliott Wave. Is it worth learning? I haven't heard of Neo Wave. I mean, if it's supposed to be a plussed up or better version, by all means. There's no holy grail in the market. There's no end all be all in terms of what you can look at. I like to focus on the three things that I talk about all the time: time, which is GAN; price, which is Elliott Wave; and the indicators. That's kind of my core, three components of what I use. If there's something else that you like to use, by all means, do it. I think you'll find out as you go through trading, as you go through investing, you're going to find something that just fits with your personality, your character, your risk. And if it works for you, then great. Who cares what anybody else thinks? If it's Neo Wave, a lot of people like to mark indicators. I studied that for a long time. It really didn't fit what I like to do. But if there's something else that you like, Neo Wave, whatever it might be, absolutely study it, give it a shot, see how it works in real time. Let's see, what else we got here? DocuSign. Yeah, I believe this is similar to the price action in block. Not as, actually, it's had a little bit of a better move here. So, again, hasn't kept up with the rest of the market. You can see it's topped here in December of last year. It did bottom with the market in April, but this looks like to be an earnings miss here. And so now it's struggling to get back above its 200-day moving average. This isn't something that I would get too crazy about. However, if we see this correction into August, or maybe over the next 3 months, let's say August into October, and we get into these oversold levels again, or maybe it tries to break below this April 7th low while the rest of the market doesn't, gets into extreme oversold conditions, that could be a situation for an entry point. Thoughts on WU? Is it a falling knife? Western Union. Well, it had a nice move yesterday, oddly enough, off of the short-term time factor. Okay, is it a falling knife? Yeah, it kind of looks like it, doesn't it? It hasn't kept pace with the rest of the market. It's been in a steady downtrend for years. So, if this would be a constructive low, all right. You can make the argument this is a fifth wave move down. 1, 2. Here, I'll label it for you just so you can see here. Let's see. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Maybe you would want to see this start to really strengthen. Okay, and if depending on how the rest of the market trades, this is something where you could look for entry points, but I would keep your risk very, very low given the falling knife and the fact that it is in such a prolonged downtrend. Thoughts on another precious metal like silver? Yeah, silver has obviously had a very strong move of late, and really what happened was when you looked at it relative to gold, it wasn't keeping pace, and now it's actually leading, okay? And it's having a really nice, strong uptrend. So let me go back to the weekly chart here. And let's see here. So you can see it's starting to break out. Like, gold has rallied well above its 2011 highs, well above this, okay? And now silver's starting to play catch up. So, if let's say gold and silver continue to rally while stocks break down or correct, this is a situation where if we get any correction, maybe over the next week or two, okay, what would be ideal, and this is something for 10 stock traders, 10 stock trader subscribers to be on the lookout for, and something that I haven't covered, but I'll cover it right now, is if we get a low, okay, into August, and if we go back to gold, that holds, let's go to the daily chart again. Okay, if we get into this August timeframe, okay, I don't think this is going to matter. I think it's proven that it's going to hold. So if we can get down into this August low and gold is just chopping around here, that's a situation where we can actually look to add silver as well. maybe even buy call options because silver is so volatile. Okay, so first I would want to see, number one, how stocks are going to react. Then let's see if gold can hold, and we can look at support levels in silver to buy as well. All right. So yeah, that's we're looking at. We'll focus on Tesla and Google at the end after the close today. We'll see how it trades over the next couple of weeks. We have divergence watch heading into August, but I think we're going to be setting up for some nice trading setups. Thank you much for joining me. Please remember to like and subscribe, tell your friends, comment, ask questions. Okay, and I will see you next week. Thank you very much for joining.